This is the All Rev'd Up podcast, season 6, episode 5, and it's Memorial Day. I'm Reverend Emmett Price.
And I'm Reverend Irene Monroe.
Well, before we jump into today's conversation on the Black roots of Memorial Day, let us thank each of our listeners and viewers. This 6th season is all because of you. Thank you for listening to us on the various podcast apps and for watching the actual live recording of the podcast on our YouTube channel. We are grateful for your support, your encouragement, your feedback, your reviews, and your comments. Thank you so much for sharing the podcast with others.
And like you, Emmett, I send a tsunami of thanks to our listeners and fans always. I can never offer enough thanks to our brilliant producers, Kyla Wright and Cavante Smalls.
It's always acceptable to ask who made the potato salad. Everybody's kitchen isn't clean, but be discreet about it or don't. It's your call. You know if your kids are bad. Keep an eye on them. Don't make unsuspecting friends your free babysitters.
Memorial Day is known as the day where we memorialize the lives and commemorate the actions of our courageous soldiers who have gone on to eternity. Memorial Day is also the day that we often use to demark the beginning of the summer season. Memorial Day also is known as the weekend that the outdoor cooking season begins, with all that grilling and pool parties, backyard gatherings, and Irene, potato salad.
Potato salad, indeed. And you know, it has to have the right amount of paprika to mayonnaise. Now, how do you hook yours up, Emmett?
I don't eat potato salad. I'm not a
Shut
mayonnaise
your
person.
mouth.
I'm not a mayonnaise person. So
my God.
You can have mine.
Okay, I will, and I'm coming over to your house. But yeah, you listen. It's not Memorial Day. It's not a Black celebration unless you have potato salad. But let me just tell you a little bit about how we got to the potato salad. We've been celebrating, Emmett, this holiday since 1865. Mm-hmm. So the question is this: how did it get whitewashed? And how it got whitewashed is its roots is in America's original sin, the Civil War. Now, free slaves created the first Memorial Day. This was a free Black community in Charleston, South Carolina in 1865, and Black Charlestonians organized a burial of Union prisoners of war who had died in a Confederate war prison. Now, their grave site where they were laid to rest was called Martyrs of the Race Course. Now, this tribute to our Black fallen soldiers gave birth to an American tradition. So, this is why when we talk about Black contribution to American society, it's important to understand why we continue to argue for Black History Month, why the 1619 Project matters, why Florida banning African-American AP courses matter and banning Black authors. It was whitewashed, and to this day, many of us, African-Americans who gather for this holiday, Emmett, don't have a clue that this is a Black holiday.
So you're telling me that Memorial Day was started by freed slaves in South Carolina on May 1st, Charleston. 1865.
That's
Charleston,
right.
South Carolina. And Black folks actually were paying tribute to fallen, you said Union soldiers, right? Those who were fighting for emancipation, right?
That's right.
And so that we as Black folks, because I want to underscore, maybe I want to overscore this, we were giving thanks to the white soldiers who were fighting on behalf of freedom. Is that right?
No, we were giving thanks to our Black soldiers. Let me say a few things about this.
This is what I want to clear up.
First of all, number one is Black bodies didn't matter back then as if they do today. burying our black soldiers was quite important because nobody would bury them but us. This is one of the reasons why black undertakers, morticians, became quite important and a revered profession in our culture here. But the other thing is this, the importance was that they were freed because why? April 8, 1865 ended the war. And these bodies were laying around. Now, do understand this. We didn't have embalming fluid then. But these bodies needed to be respectfully buried. And so April, the war ended. Listen to this. April, the war ended. May was the first memorial service. And then what happens June 19th?
Yeah, Juneteenth, right?
Juneteenth.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
exactly right. Okay, so we're on it. I mean, we are very much being very observant of how this sort of emancipation is rolling out. So another thing is this: when we were enslaved, we couldn't do our own funerals. And the reason for that was because white slave owners worried about rebellion, runaway slaves, and to be quite honest, they really didn't care about black bodies dying.
So I want to overscore this because I think it's important for our listeners to realize, one, that they were black soldiers during the Civil War.
That's right.
Two, that black people were responsible for taking care of the remains of those fallen black soldiers. And
right.
three, that in the beginning of this great nation, at least the part in the 19th century in the 1860s and whatnot, that black folks honored the patriotic commitments of the nation by participating in the war.
That's right.
I mean, because this is important because, we're often perceived as not fighting for this country or not participating in the patriotic endeavors of this nation. And here you have it, that all these years later, that Memorial Day is the fruit of black people not only being patriotic, but black people actually fighting for the soul of this nation.
And also, it is the first effort of us understanding, well, not even, I should say understanding, performing what we call, and the way in which we do it, homegoings. Okay, because and at those funerals, all of the sort of African retentions that could not be openly displayed at black funerals of enslaved people was certainly brought back. So now, and depending on where you were, Charleston or whether you were in New Orleans, it had a certain kind of black flair to it, shaped by the culture in which these enslaved bodies, definitely, well, I should say that these enslaved bodies are influenced by.
So, here in South Carolina, you had a parade, you had the adorning of the grave site, with flowers and all kinds of other items.
And the pastors came out.
Yep, the clergy. Yep.
The singing of the spirituals. That was essential. The pouring of libations. Okay, and let's be let's be honest and be black. And the falling in the caskets.
Oh, Lord.
And also, another thing is this. One of the things that we don't understand is a booming business, a vocation that became a huge organization, which are black undertakers, because we had to also build our caskets.
Yes.
That was important. Sort of, and we also had to figure out ways in which to preserve the bodies. And so when it talks about embalming over time, how did that, come about? There were black people who had learned, not even learned, I should say this, excavated those African retentions that they had brought over from the motherland in terms of how to preserve black bodies. Because you got to understand this here, Emmett. If we understand that the war had ended in 1865 of April, so in May now we're about 3 weeks out. You got to say, well, what did they do with those bodies? They were able to preserve those bodies, and how we preserve those bodies is how America adopted preserving bodies once they die.
So African retentions became the catalyst for some of the most patriotic observances in this nation. So Memorial Day is one of the most patriotic observances. We do the Star Spangled Banner. We do, all kinds of, quote unquote American things. But those are reflections and were started by African retentions. I want to mark that there. And I
Yeah,
also
that's
want to
right.
suggest.
I was going to say, because you got to understand this, and you see it in certain religions, like in Muslim religion and as well as in Jewish religion. The body decomposes, so that's why you got to get rid of the body immediately. And
And
we had an art form of preserving, and some of it is mummification that we talk about, we learn about, and when we talk about Egypt, but there were other ways to preserve the body.
So, I mean, I just need to say this. It's interesting that as we are watching the erasure of Black history, of Black contributions to American history, to Black legacy and Black narratives in the Floridas and the Texases and the other places around the country, that here you have something that is tremendously significant that most people as a national holiday
Don't know,
people
yeah.
don't know about the Black roots of Memorial Day. And I
That's
think that
right.
that's
Right.
absolutely absurd.
And the other thing, another retention. I don't know if it's African or it's part of African slave culture. One of the things we talk about at Black funerals, right? That they long. That's right. That that's right. That's right. That first
Hmm.
one was at least 3 hours long, and
Hmm.
that's a short, and that's burying 240,
Hmm.
slaves. That's I would say
Yeah,
freemen, because they
yeah,
freed men,
yeah.
and our. So the point is that when we complain about certain things like why are Black funerals so long, why do we dress up the way we do? Why do we perform the way we do? It's because these are retentions from the very first official Memorial Day.
Well, Irene, I don't know if you eat potato salad only in the evening or in the evening and the afternoon or perhaps evening, afternoon, and morning. But we're gonna take a break so you can
As
go
soon, listen,
get a
as
little
soon
potato salad. We'll be
as
right back. This is the All Rev'd Up
listen,
podcast.
as soon as it comes out, as long as your kitchen is clean.
God, we'll be right back.
School's children singing the Union marching song, John Brown's Body.
Most importantly, whether Charleston's Decoration Day was the first, was attended by Charleston's Black community. AJ, Mike, we'll continue on. This is why you moved in closer so you can hear this.
This is the All Rev'd Up podcast. You were just listening or trying to listen to a clip from Now This, June 3rd, 2021, where retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Bernard Kempter was trying to share the Black roots of Memorial Day at an official commemoration, and his people turned his mic off, Irene. They didn't want to hear the truth. They couldn't handle the truth. I mean,
Oh
what do you
God.
here you have it, a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel giving the Black history of Memorial Day, and his own he turns over to AJ, whoever that is, and says, AJ, Mike. They turn the mic off on him.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, absolutely, for a couple of reasons. His reference, and listen, I have tremendous respect for David Blight. He wrote a book. I mean, he wrote a biography on Frederick Douglass. Not like Frederick Douglass didn't write his own stories in right, in 3 volumes of it, right, Emmett?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Today particularly is the reference to John Brown. And listen, I give John Brown his kudos. I really do. He was a white guy for the cause. He was an abolitionist. But in that same rebellion was also Nat Turner. And so that becomes problematic. It's that, again, the reference is, and again, David Blight, who is a good historian, but there are other people who has written on this story. He's not the only one, so it becomes problematic. But let me just say this here, that We have died, you know, for this country as patriots. A good example of that is Crispus Attucks, if you remember, this sort of biracial African and indigenous brother who died here in Boston in 1770. He was the first to die during the American
Revolution.
Revolution. Okay, and then we have brought tremendous honor to our country as patriots. Let us never forget the Tuskegee Airmen during World War II. And I want to get this right. They came home with this, Emmett: 150 distinguished flying crosses, 744 air medals, 8 Purple Hearts, 14 Bronze Stars. And I just want to say this: we have fought in many wars, from the American Revolution in the 1700s to present day, because we have brothers that we got to always remember: the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Afghan, right? But I want to just say this: a lot of our brothers were fighting in a segregated military. It didn't become desegregated until 1948. But the question here that I'd like for us to explore is, white patriotism is intolerant when we criticize America. And a good example of that is Donald Trump with Colin Kaepernick. Wouldn't you say?
Well, you already know I'm not talking about that person that you mentioned, and I'm not talking about Kaepernick. I would talk about Kaepernick all day long. But I want to go back to something that you said about the historian David Blight. There was an even more correct historian back in 1934 who published a book, 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro with Complete Proof. And this is Joel A. Rogers, J.A. Rogers. And fact number 81 was about Memorial Day and the black roots of Memorial Day. So again, folks who choose not to read black authors, folks who choose to ban black historians, you are eradicating your own history. And I understand why. Because if we give credit to the black folks who did some amazing things in this country, then you actually have to treat us as intelligent, very important people. And for those who are fixated on this chattel narrative and fixated on this narrative of erasure, then, it goes contrary. So to the person that you mentioned, who I would put in that category, which is why I don't talk about him, I think, we have some more unveiling and unraveling to do in terms of why this nation is great, at least the historical roots of it, and why it can be great again, not because of supremacist ideologies, but because of the inclusive nature of all of the human beings who gave their lives so that we can be free.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's very, very interesting, because it's not like this was just written yesterday or even in the last 100 years. It's two things. One of the things that kept these stories alive is, again, I give kudos to the veracity of the oral tradition. But the other thing that they forget here is this, is that we had always been writing our history, whether we were writing a slave narrative like Frederick Douglass did, or Booker T. Washington, but we were also preserving our material.
Yes.
Because if we didn't, just like we were preserving the bodies of our soldiers who died, and black people in general who died, if we didn't do it, it wouldn't get done. I mean, even Emmett, when we talk about the 1619 project here, long before, and I love the sister Hannah
Nicole Hannah Jones.
okay, who comes out with it. Listen, there was this well-known journalist and historian, Lerone Bennett,
That's right.
who wrote a book, Before the Mayflower. So again, it's that what happens is the primacy that we give to certain information here. I think, though, the question, though, here is this. Is the question about black patriotism. Certainly we could do a litany of people who have died for this country. I think our audience need to hear how we define black patriotism.
Well, you go on and tell them.
Okay. Well, okay. You know what? I call black patriotism what Frederick Douglass called it. And on July 5th, what was it, 1852? It's sort of like, We criticizing the hypocrisy. We give our lives, we give our labor, we give our bodies to build this country, to be part of this country. But what is liberation? Even after 1865, it still resonates. It resonated then when he talked about it in 1852. It resonated clearly in 1865, and also resonates today in 2023.
Well, you know what? I want to go back to the potato salad because
All right. Okay.
I need to
Move it
understand.
out.
I need to understand why is it so good. That's what I want to ask you. Why? What makes the potato salad so good?
Because you have to have a certain proportion of paprika along with the mayonnaise here. I keep telling you
All
this,
right.
okay?
Well,
And some people throw a little sugar in it, just a little
Well,
sugar.
I just-
Not too much salt, not too much salt.
I want to pay homage to this clip that we started the episode with 2019 WUSA morning show as they ran down Memorial Day cookouts and the things that are well known about them. And of course, you and I both got hooked on that potato salad and had to talk about that. But the final thing that I want to say,
I don't know what kind of Memorial Day you having if you're not having potato salad.
well, we don't want to start there.
Okay.
We don't want to start there because I want to give you time to give your final word so we can close out because I got some
All right.
celebrating to do.
All right. So I want to begin by saying thank you to Lieutenant Colonel James Harvey III. He is one of the few surviving Tuskegee Airmen who just recently celebrated his 100th birthday. Black patriotism is central to the American story. Whether we are fighting on a battlefield, protesting in the streets of America, or casting our votes in the ballot box. For Black Americans, loving the country and criticizing it has always been inseparable, something other Americans have often struggled to understand. Black patriotism does not hold that America is irredeemably racist, but rather it asks if America is interested in redemption. The question is formed and informed by history, our optimism, and a realism about a struggle with racial justice. And its root is embedded in this whole notion that this country can reconcile Black with American. On this Memorial Day, we pray and give thanks for those who courageously laid down their lives for the cause of freedom. They have fought when others fear to serve, and they have gone where others have failed to go. May the examples of their sacrifice inspire in us the selfless love for democracy. We pray for those who have fallen in battle. On this Memorial Day, let us remember that every service member that has died on duty was also a member of a family. They were someone's parent, spouse, sibling, and even our friend. No amount of prayers can repay those who have sacrificed their lives for a peaceful and free country. But we as citizens who are protected by their service can celebrate, care for, and remember our service members by honoring this day. Ashe.
Ashe.
And amen.
Amen. All Rev'd Up is brought to you by us, the Revs. Our amazing producers are Kyla Wright and Cavante Smalls.
Music for this episode is from Reverend Price's son and musical prodigy, Emmett G. Price IV. All Rev'd Up is distributed by GBH.
Additional thanks to Bob Kempf, Elizabeth O'Brien, May He, Devin Robbins, Meredith Neerman, and Zach Waldman.
If you like what you hear, let us know. Give us a review on Apple Podcasts and follow us at All Rev'd Up Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
Feel free to send us a note, a question, or a comment to allrevduppod@gmail.com. We'll be back